This terrible story happened back in 1970. I remember how, as young students, we went on an expedition in our native land. We studied ancient Russian architecture. In simple terms, we traveled through the villages, looking for old churches, huts, and studied their structure. Our group consisted of 10 people and the teacher-professor. Unassuming such a man, who was more drunk on the nature than doing business. In the middle of the practice we were in a remote village. The professor was told that there is a great old hut there. The hut actually turned out to be ancient. All houses in the village are ancient, but this is the most. Time here as if frozen. It seems that even the electricity was absent. The mistress was as old as the hut, she was born before the revolution. But the old woman turned out to be a hospitable hostess and in her right mind. She let us go to her house to look around. So we walk through the rooms and study. Professor is giving a mini lecture about architecture. And then we stumble upon a carved wooden chair with a high back. The most curious thing is that it stands in a corner and a rope is strung around it, like in a museum. So I understood that no one sat down inadvertently. The professor got interested. His grandmother, at his request, told him that the chair belonged to her distant relative, who was considered an evil sorcerer. They thought that all the troubles in the village were because of him. Of course, they were terribly afraid, but one day patience came to an end. When the men came to get him, the sorcerer was sitting on this very chair. And he said that even after death he would not leave them alone, and anyone who sits in that chair will be punished, and so it happened. Then, everyone who sat on the chair lost his life. That's why we fenced it off. The old woman finished her gruesome story. Of course, not many people believed in such mysticism. And when the grandmother came out of the room to give us some steamed milk, the 6 considered it their duty to sit on that chair. And the professor was the first to sit on it. Though I was foolish and young in those days, but I had enough sense not to sit on that chair, because of which I was tormented with malicious jokes till the end of practice. Soon practice was over and we all went home. When the new academic year began, it turned out that we have a new professor. The professors were stubbornly silent, but rumor had it that the bottle had ruined our head of practice. I wouldn't say it alarmed anyone, and for nothing. The creepiest thing is that something happened to everyone who sat in that damn chair. Not all at once, but in the order in which they were sitting in that chair. I was talking to one of the guys once at a party. And he confessed that after he sat on the chair, he felt a wave of strange coldness. But only for a moment, and then it went away. But here's more of the strangeness. He said that after a month or so he began to notice from the side vision that someone in a black robe was standing next to him. Turns around. There was nobody. He heard incomprehensible sounds, voices calling out to him. Naturally, he told no one about it, so as not to be laughed at. He decided to tell me when he'd had a lot to drink, but I didn't believe him. I thought he was kidding. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Recently, I was walking along the main street of our city and came across a small store selling antique furniture. I went in out of curiosity. I see, among other things, familiar chair with high carved back, which my grandmother had in the cabin back in the 70s. I remembered it well. I think I even sketched it back then. I'm not bad at drawing. I don't know how it got here or if it's the right one. But it looks a lot like him. I didn't sit down to check it out. There you go. Thank you for watching and supporting me. Subscribe to the channel. There will be many more interesting things.